Alrighty, I'm going to record this. This is actually going to be podcast 26. This may come out actually before pod. I don't even know when the last Plato pod I've gotten up is, but I still have a bit of an issue audio-wise with pod 25. Essentially recorded that with my headphones on, not speaking into them, so audio quality on episode 25 or pod 25 is not good, so I will have to essentially replay. I'm basically just going to listen to my pod and verbatim repeat the words again, hopefully putting the volume stuff back in order by not having the headphones on during it, so that'll be that. But for right now, I wanted to quickly pivot because this is not going to be a discussion about Plato. Instead, this is going to be more so along the lines of my initial first podcast about Juan Soto. Although this time it's not going to be about baseball. It's going to be about basketball again. But this time, I'm not complaining about the NBA Cup or any stupid shit like that. Today, we're discussing the Luka-Doncic for Anthony Davis plus others trade. So overnight, last night, so I'm recording this little after 9 a.m. Sunday, February 2nd, 2025. And I think I saw the notification on my phone and really couldn't believe it at about 12:51 a.m. that Doncic had been traded for Anthony Davis and others, like I said. So thing we're going to do here is we're going to analyze this trade because I think you can make an argument this is the highest profile trade in NBA history as far as players being traded for each other, and I'm not gonna spend too much time speculating on that. I just want to go through some of the elements of this trade and simply to start to give my take on it, because I think my initial reaction is essentially what a weird trade. I can see a lot of ways this could work out for both sides. I guess when you're trading such high quality players for one another, that's a possible outcome there. This isn't Anthony Davis being traded for Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram and X, Y, Z else and draft picks, etc. This is you getting for Luka Doncic. You're getting a premier player. Trying to pull up right now as a bit of a reference. Trying to bring up Bill Simmons' trade value chart or list, whatever it is, just because it'll be a useful sort of reference point. I have it on the phone right now, but I'd prefer to have it on the computer to look at it. But I just briefly looked at it and it looked like Doncic, he had listed as his number 4 trade asset with Davis as number 11. So clearly two high quality trade pieces that could clearly yield a lot of return if traded for somebody, and then arguably being traded for one another really maximizes the value that you get in such a trade. But that's part of the somewhat shocking thing is the fact essentially that the Mavericks would trade somebody that talented, basically being the only reason the Lakers would trade somebody as talented as Davis. Somebody the Celtics tried to trade for, I think, a number of times and weren't successful because they didn't have a commitment from him to be with the franchise long term. So there's all sorts of different elements that are interesting to look into on this one, and I haven't fully weighed it, but I guess I just want to do here just a bit of live analysis of run through some of the thoughts that initially run through my mind before I do more statistical analysis. So, you know, basically no offense here to Bill Simmons, but I'm not going to use his trade values chart as a definitive proof on whether or not this was a good deal. We're going to kind of consider the various elements in themselves. Initially, though, I would say the Lakers got the better of this deal, and if you want to sort of understand why, you can sort of refer to the principle that in a trade, the team that gets the best player is the one that's going to come out on top, all things being equal. And so I think that, somebody like a LeBron James acquiring a Luka-Doncic, we'll see sort of the play out of how that works because of the sort of ball dominant nature of Luka, or seemingly, I guess, a bit of redundancy between play styles of a Luka Doncic at 6'7", 230 to 260 pounds, depending on how bad of shape he's in, and LeBron James, who's an inch or two taller, however many pounds heavier, but very similar play styles, except for Doncic obviously has better sort of long-range skill sets, and then LeBron is a better athlete, so they're not completely redundant to one another, but I do think that that there's a potential just for having essentially too many high quality people needing the ball, although you could have said something similar, I guess, about Luka and Kyrie, and that worked out fairly well for them in terms of getting to the NBA Finals. And then you can also point to sort of like Kobe Bryant's analysis of the Cavaliers when they had LeBron and Kyrie, as to say that perhaps the Lakers with Luka and LeBron will run that sort of two kings offense where LeBron will get even more opportunities to rest because Doncic will be able to dominate the ball even further. I think this sort of this is helpful in terms of reducing LeBron's workload, and by finally sort of with resolving sort of a minor issue, but the issue of Anthony Davis being formerly the best player on the Lakers, but if you want to call it not being their alpha or not being the sort of game-to-game offensive force such that they're, the focal point offensively for their team, I think you could say Luka will be an upgrade in that respect. Although, what do you lose out by adding a top quality guard and trading a top quality column of power forward if you want? I mean, he's a center as far as like thinking about the game is concerned. But again, so this trade value, I guess this trade value list has Davis at 9. So just to quickly go through these profiles here on Doncic and Davis, and frankly, I'm I'm aware to a decent degree of these elements, but just to go through them quickly, I mean, like I just said though, Doncic basically, if you look at this list, other than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's listed as the best or most valuable guard in the NBA. So top tier guard, scorer, passer, and so some of the attributes they give him in this thing, I guess this is video game style, god tier playmaker, He's the full cause and effect of every move he makes: passing, virtuoso, pull-up threat, clutch gene, human highlight. So, making shots in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A top quality player. And then Anthony Davis, perennial defensive player of the year candidate, who has embraced his identity by streamlining a once limitless skill set. And they say interior scoring, shot blocking, injury concerns, positional versatility. So when you start to read some of the articles that were written about this trade, the rationales as they came out, that statement from whoever it was from the Mavericks, who basically said, yeah, we're really excited about getting a good defensive player. And, I don't know if you trade Luka-Doncic to upgrade your defense. I think that's sort of a convenient thing that may happen as a result of that. But the trade has to be for, I guess, more holistic reasons. So what I guess you'd be arguing is that you're pairing Anthony Davis with Kyrie Irving is a better pairing than Kyrie and Luka. Now, those two just made the NBA Finals last year, but, frankly don't know if they would have made it through a healthier Western Conference last year. But I also think it's interesting that I think until yesterday, everybody would have said, the Mavericks are they're in the Luka Doncic business. They brought Kyrie to the team to improve Luka's team, but ultimately it's for Luka's benefit, and therefore it just makes it slightly strange that you would then pivot to a team headlined by Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving. It's almost like you're putting together the didn't actually happen 2020 Celtics with Kyrie Irving coming back to the team and Anthony Davis finally being traded to the team. The only problem, I guess, is you don't have a Jason Tatum left on the team to sort of smooth out the wrinkles of who you gave up in order to acquire him. But I think the pairing of Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving makes some sense on the surface of it. Again, another premium level guard, scorer, maybe not the playmaker that Doncic is, but a playmaker in his own right. And so you could see that pairing working well, and I guess time will tell on that. But I can't believe that they traded Doncic, because I think that Doncic is really, you could see last year in the NBA Finals that it was a matchup between him leading his team, Tatum leading his team. And I think what you saw was that, number one, Tatum's team around him was better, so he won on account of that. I wouldn't say Tatum outplayed Doncic in the finals, but it would seem to me that Luka did more with less. And then the other factor to think about is just that during last year's playoffs, Jason Tatum, it was apparent that he lost sort of control of having a tight jump shot that could be reliable, and it was quite clear that he wasn't confident in his jump shooting abilities, broadly speaking, even though he made a good amount of shots, but it was clear his confidence was affected. But what was what was holding it all together was the fact that Tatum's sort of playmaking, actually, so talking about Doncic is a god-tier playmaker and passing virtuoso, all these things, he's better in these aspects than Tatum is. But Tatum, being the primary offensive threat for the Celtics, he was basically getting so many double teams that it made sense for him to become, primarily passing oriented, and they ended up winning. But I'm only saying that to say, I think Doncic, in leading his team, had to do a bit more because the scoring load was more centrally focused on him, whereas Tatum had more options around him. And so for someone like Doncic, I guess the question would be, should you build around him? And that's essentially, we can sort of get the implication from this trade that the Mavericks had decided they did not want to re-sign him to the full max of 5 years, $345 million, which is a pretty extraordinary amount of money, but certain players, you'd say they're they're worth it or they're not worth it. And the fact that they traded him seemingly out of nowhere with no real notice, it seems to me that this is something that's indicative that the Mavericks didn't want him long term. And then start reading the articles, try to get a sense of why not. And it's seemingly injury concerns for Doncic having to do with his conditioning, that he's not in good enough shape to avoid the sort of hamstring injuries. And just in the last few days, you've got even Zion Williamson, who's, I guess, dealing with some sort of issue relating to hamstrings, and he's allegedly in good condition, but continues to have these hamstring injuries, which quite frankly are an indication that you're not in good condition, because otherwise you probably wouldn't be having so many hamstring injuries. And then comparing that then to Doncic, who's been having, I believe, calf issues and other things, but these sort of little nagging injuries that can become serious if you tear your Achilles or something like that. Doncic has missed a good amount of time this year, and I really thought it was bizarre, though, the statement they made about prioritizing the defense, as if they're basically saying, well, Luka doesn't play defense worth a lick, and that means we can't, pay him whatever amount of money. And I'm just not sure if I buy that in any sense. So, yeah, I just can't believe they traded Doncic, because I think the people who've watched Doncic can see that he bears a lot of resemblance to players like, one name that comes off of the top of my head is Larry Bird, in terms of premier level scorer combined with premier level passer, rebounding elements together. And then the sort of points of comparison would be Doncic, not as good of a shooter as Bird, potentially a slightly better scorer though. And, and then you would say he's a better passer than Bird, although that seems like blasphemy to say, but I'll go ahead and say that, because that that seems that makes sense to me, because you look at Luka's career statistics, and his career averages are 28.6 points per game, 8.7 rebounds per game, 8.3 assists on 47% shooting, 34.8% field goal percentage, and 75% from the line. So not necessarily the most efficient free throw shooter or 3-point scorer, but he's a quantity scorer. He scores lots of points, and he gets lots of statistics, and right. So let's just look through, though, to look at Doncic's history, because I think then again, you're saying you're trading Doncic and he's hurt, but Davis is also hurt, and Davis is frankly always hurt. So again, it's just crazy that they traded Doncic, in my opinion, because he's such a unique player, such a good player. I can't believe that he was traded. And then I think if you look at his statistics as far as his scoring is concerned, go from his rookie year scoring 21.2 points a game. Then the next year he's up to 28.8, 27.7, 28.4, 32.4, 33.9, and this year 28.1. So, in his passing, 6, 8.8, 8.6, 8.6, 8, 9.8. Especially, I think, last year, averaging 34 points, 10 assists, and 8.5 rebounds, or 9 rebounds. Even if it's 4 turnovers a game, that's a remarkable statistical showing. And again, I just don't know why you trade this guy. So looking at the number of games though for him per year, so it looks like he averages around 60-ish games a year, if not slightly higher, 65-ish, but so he's clearly never been somebody who plays every single game. He's not a Mikal Bridges sort of player, or did I? Yeah, I think that's the name of that guy who's played like 550 games in a row. But this year, clearly his game totals are going to be substantially lower. But I know if I pulled up Anthony Davis's career things, we would start to see holes in the stat line of the injury sort, and therefore, essentially, I think it makes sense to say that Davis at this point is a better value as far as injury is concerned. If you're really concerned long term that Doncic is essentially never going to be in good physical shape, and therefore he's going to continue having these nagging sort of injuries that are going to slow him down. I don't know if that makes sense. Again, in context of trading for Anthony Davis, I think he's a great player, but I just don't understand it, frankly. And Davis had been on the Lakers for so long that I was expecting them to try and build around him long term. But then there is questions about that because he is 31 and he's had injury concerns before. And he's essentially somebody from a size profile. I mean, he's a big for sure, but specifically he's a power forward who's forced to play center. And therefore that's going to wear on him a bit. And I just don't know about building around Davis long term. And that seems to be one of the things the Mavericks are doing. So another aspect of this trade to consider is the fact that the Mavericks just got pretty substantially older by the 6-year difference between Doncic and Davis. And again, are you really subtracting those sort of injury concerns, or do you have those injury concerns in a different form with Davis? Because Davis is literally hurt right now, and he's seemingly always hurt. So, I mean, I didn't want to go too long on this, but I just wanted to go over some of the elements of this trade, because I guess the real first reaction to this trade is to say, wow, that's bizarre. The other thing to say is not readily apparent right off the bat that this is a true win-win, although some of the indications of what I've said would seem to imply that it could be a win-win. If Doncic essentially puts it in his mind that now as a member of the Lakers, he's gonna do whatever he needs to do to improve his physical state of being so that he can play more consistently? Will this motivate him? Who knows? Don't even frankly care to speculate on that, but I frankly think that the Lakers won this trade, and as a Celtics fan, that's not good to say, but when you get the best player in the trade, I guess that makes sense. So really, I guess I'm not seeing this from the Lakers' perspective, because from the Lakers' perspective, I think this makes a lot of sense, actually. Again, like I said, probably won the trade by virtue of getting the better player. And then, I just don't know who in their right mind would have traded Luka-Doncic to somebody else, because, you trade him within the Western Conference, and then, you could be facing him in the playoffs. That's just the reality. So, frankly, not sure about the decision by the Mavericks. Would this decision have been made if Mark Cuban were still the controlling owner of the team? I doubt it, but it just seems like something to me where a team, they're prisoner of the moment sort of elements to it, where I think they allowed themselves to be frustrated by Doncic. If you want to make the argument essentially that he's out of shape because he's not showing sufficient effort in maintaining his conditioning such that he doesn't have these injuries so consistently, I think you just say, what happens if he gets his shit together for real, and is 34 points a game, is that like a realistic expectation? What will he be doing with LeBron James in the lineup? How do you build the team around him to support him? Arguably, you need tons of shooters, which I don't know if that's what the Lakers have, but something in my mind just tells me if you get LeBron James and Luka Doncic on the basketball court together, that some magical things may happen, especially on the offensive side of things. Now, I think you also look at it from the Lakers' perspective, though, and say, we just downgraded massively on the defensive side of things, and seeing as LeBron James is no longer really a positive force on the defensive end, largely speaking, I think for both sides it really looks bizarre, and that's why I hesitate to say it's a win-win, because I could see a real scenario where it ends up being a lose-lose, at least as much as is possible with such good players, because let's just imagine the outcome that let's say the Mavericks, either their team deteriorates, or let's just say that their team deteriorates, and at the same time the Lakers suffer for injury concerns. Doncic doesn't play a ton, and LeBron has to carry an unreasonable burden, etc. And then both teams are seemingly worse for their addition by subtraction sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of elements to it. And again, to use that Bill Simmons top 100 players by the trade rankings sort of list. This isn't even the trade value ranking. This is the NBA player rankings. So the trade value rankings, Davis is 11th. And again, I think it's because, Davis is one of the pictures at the top of this article. And I believe the section he's in for this is untouchables, but again, Doncic is even higher caliber on this list than so just to look at this real quick, Kyrie Kyrie's listed at 24 on this list, and then no, I guess that's how they listed Davis as 9. So, all right, I guess I'm gonna stop because I'm running out of a bit of momentum and I don't want to start getting repetitive. But just again, very surprising. Not something I expected. Something that upon reading it, it just seemed to me. It doesn't make sense, frankly. I don't like this trade, but time will tell if I'm, correct in that opinion or not. So I'm gonna pause right there. So that's all for what is this, Pod 26, I guess. And like I said, I've got more production work on getting whichever ones are already recorded but not ready to be uploaded yet. I will work to getting those uploaded, but I'm going to likely upload this one first just because of the topicality of wanting to get something out there day after sort of reaction. So that's all it is. So thanks.